Season 2, Episode 3, Dan. Botched Wrestling Podcast back. As you saw last night, I signed us up for a little bit of a promo, hopefully. If we get picked, the podcast gets picked by Heroes Hideout. Shout out Heroes Hideout. We'll basically do whatever you want us to do. We're that easy. We, both of us, have very low standards for trying to make this podcast work. Dan, am I wrong? Am I wrong?
Not exactly.
Exactly. Yeah. So obviously Dan's back in his cave with all of his video games.
Yep.
The Botched Wrestling Podcast logo on the back. So Dan, I liked AEW the past 2 weeks. Yeah.
It's a miracle. It's a miracle.
There's 2 things I specifically liked, okay?
Okay.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Samoa Joe and Hook. I love that. I love that tandem. Because if you think about it, Samoa Joe is straight from the school of Taz. So it only makes sense you put those two together. And I just love how they talk about like random stuff, or they're just doing random things, and then all of a sudden they just go beat the piss out of everybody who's in front of them. Both of them can. And I've always been, as bad as I've crapped on AEW, I've always been big on Hook, I believe. I've told you that. I said I think he could be a potential star at NXT if he ever got the shot. So it's kind of good to see him be under Samoa Joe's learning tree. No pun intended. But I just think it works, right? Like it's just a small thing, right? Like when you hear Hook and Joe together, you don't think, oh, that's a big main event thing. Like that's just a small glue thing that will hold the show together, right? Like, and I just think those two work so well together. They're very similar on what they can do in the ring. They both can choke you out. They both can beat the piss out of you if you want. They're both way more athletic than I think people give them credit for. Even though Hook was a state champion in wrestling, I think people, when they look at Hook, I don't think they give him the benefit of the doubt based on his stature, right? Because he's not a big guy. He's not going to be the guy you put the big title on. But do I think he can carry the show in a few years? Oh, yeah. I do. I'm very high on him. Very, very high. And are you ready for number 2?
Of course. Let's do it.
Swerve and Ospreay. That's how you tell a story. That's how you start to tell a story, right?
Okay. Yeah, I like this.
That's how you tell a story, right?
Yeah.
Like, and even the whole Ospreay and MJF bumping into each other. Like, granted, I didn't watch the full shows. I've caught clips and pieced it together off the DVR and such. But that's how you tell a story. Like, that's like the promos back and forth, and Ospreay telling Swerve, "Don't make it personal." Then Ospreay walks out of the ring with the music hitting, and Swerve says, "Cut the music. Tell your wife and kid, Bob," and he calls them by their name.
Yep.
That I said, that's right there, right? Like, it's not. They don't have to go 5 stars as soon as they go face to face, right? Like, and I think that's a problem that they've done in the past. Is like once they put 2 big stars in it, it's just okay, go. You got the green light, go. And it's like you don't have to. You have Forbidden Door coming up. You have other pay-per-views down the line coming up. I will give credit. That's a huge step for what AEW's been doing. I just just based on what we've seen, right? That's a huge step. So hopefully it continues this way, right? I don't know if Tony's not there and somebody else is in charge, or Tony now has a few people that he's trying to bend stuff off of, or get somebody's ear. But I feel like this is it's, I don't know. Is this the best it's been? I think since the early days, would you say?
I was gonna say it's not the best it's ever been, but it's the best it's been since like the very beginning when it was new and fresh and
Yeah,
different,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
and B they had a run there I think with MJF and Punk and
Oh yeah,
in
for
general
sure,
things,
for sure.
for as many issues and absences they had with Punk, they had some great stuff going
Oh
on
yeah.
when he was there. And especially him and MJF. And then, with MJS, I mean, yeah. Now, here's a question. Is it better than when we were getting MJF and Adam Cole slowly becoming best buddies and all the vignettes and all that stuff they did that were very popular? Your opinion in general.
I think it's on the way. If they continue
Yeah.
to tell stories, I think it's gonna
Yeah.
surpass that.
So I think
Because
it's as good as that whole development of the
yeah.
two of them as friends, and then also like for a little bit with what was going on with him. Was he leaving? Was he, all that stuff that happened, and and then the coming back and the devil thing and stuff. I mean, that was some really good stuff for a while. They really fell off after he was gone.
Yeah, I mean we kinda called that, right? Like if he
Yeah.
was really that hurt, we said, who do they have? And the answer was nobody.
Yeah, I mean, it was like they started to fall off after the Wembley Punk issue and all that stuff, and then it really just tanked without him around. You know, um,
Well, and that Punk interview didn't really help, right? Because anybody that was like kind of 50-50 on like what side to be on,
yeah,
like Punk getting his point out there that he wasn't able to tell before, all of a sudden this is probably oh, well, it is childish at AEW, which it could still be childish, but they're finding ways to work, right? So, I mean,
well, then they made it more childish by doing the footage thing, which just ended
yeah,
up being dumb,
which I
dumb
think,
and falling flat.
and I think
It
if
just,
you look on all the
just terrible.
forums and Reddit and all the articles, I think you'll find 90-10 will say that shouldn't even happened. Like, what were you trying to do with it? Because whatever way you were trying to go with
I
it, it
I
didn't work in your favor.
I would have thought it would have been 95.5, right?
Yeah,
Like,
but I'm just
I
yeah,
mean,
just being
yeah,
beneficial of it. But like, yeah, it's just like, what are you doing? Like that was the biggest question that I got from all the articles I've seen, like in the interviews. It's just like, yeah, they probably had a plan what they wanted to do with the video. Did they get to it? No. So it just makes them look ridiculous, right? So I don't
well,
know.
the video was dumb. The video didn't help show anything that we didn't already know, that hadn't already been said.
Right.
It wasn't even that big of a deal, to be honest. I mean, you know, you've been involved in bigger scrapes outside of a Bills game, so I mean,
Uh, and don't forget my first bump.
yeah, that too,
I
that
mean,
too. So I mean, but for something not scripted, I mean, right?
yeah,
And um, you know, it just like it just made them look stupid. Like it really
yeah.
did,
It
in my opinion. It just because it really wasn't critical to the story. It didn't help the story. It was a stupid way of thinking they could embarrass someone, and it backfired. Because except for the biggest of the deadliest diehards, it was you know nothing, right?
yeah.
Um,
Agreed. Yeah, because it just kind of pushed people away from people that were still like hanging on to the product to see what was going to happen. They're kind of
right.
like, all right, this is what are we doing here? Now, question for you: with how with how good AEW's been the past two Wednesdays, how much of a factor of it do you think it is what TNA is now doing with WWE? Like, do you think that lit a fire under somebody's ass in the back and they got things
No,
together?
I don't because I don't think you can get it together that quickly for them.
Correct.
Um,
Correct.
I think this is probably just odd timing, but I think like maybe some pieces are falling in. Maybe it's easier for them to figure some things out. Also, like you're talking about guys that are like Swerve and Osprey, like we've always been fans of Swerve and his rise to becoming champion. So now he has a legitimate opponent that we're not, it's not, we were tired of the Hangman Page stuff.
Yeah, I
It
just
was,
don't see
it
it.
was, it just wasn't there. It wasn't hitting. It was fine the first time, and then it just went for too long, and it was not engaging. But Osprey is a really intriguing opponent for Swerve, and very talented, and probably is going to have a really good match, the two of them, right?
Oh yeah,
They're, so, and it's not sticking Osprey somewhere in the middle of the card just to say he wrestled on the show,
yeah,
right?
just to be an attraction.
And they have MJF back, so there's a lot they can do there. And right now, it's still just the like welcome back
Yep.
excitement to finally see him again. And then when you have, I think for them especially, when you have two or three potential things going on that are worthy, everything else can start to slide into place properly.
Mm-hmm.
Because right, 3 weeks ago, a month ago, they're featuring a random match, let's say, between Brian Danielson and some guy I probably should know but have never heard of from either New Japan or AAA. And that's like the big deal of the show just because it's those two names, but there's no story, there's no prior like reason, or they dig something up from 72 years ago,
Yeah.
right? And now it's like you have your A and B, C storylines, and that other stuff can happen and still be good because people don't have to be invested because they just wasted their energy being or they poured their energy into investment in two or three other big things going on. So, or like you said, like Joe and Hook, like just is this
Glue.
you know interesting dynamic, and there's a lot going on there to think about, and like you said with the Taz thing and stuff like that. So then you don't have to rely on the learning tree of Jericho to be a big deal.
Right. Well, and it's not going to be right.
No, but a month ago, 2 months ago, that was like a big thing they were trying to push, right?
Yeah, they were trying to, but I don't think it was ever with the fans, right? Because it seemed like he lost a
No,
lot of,
no.
like, with all the stories that came out in the past 6 months on him. Like, it seems to like as that's what hurt Jericho the most. And yeah, Jericho can say he's been expecting the boost to start, but let's be real, you don't expect the boost to start until they actually start, right? Like that's like that you can't predict what a certain city's gonna give you. Like he's not he's not on like his Cena type run that like he went everywhere and they said Cena sucks, but he does a Boston show and Boston loves him, right? Like Boston is
Right.
just because that's homegrown guy, right? That's their guy. That's their kid they seen grew up, put in the work, and now he's
Yeah.
possibly one, if not the greatest of all time. So, like, for Jericho to say, yeah, I was expecting to booze, it's like you're full of it because you don't know when, though, they're going to start. And then, once again, too, it's like they've been, as sad as this is, like, I was trying to explain this to my wife earlier, and I used this example. So, when you go to Pro Football Talk, and at the bottom it has the counter of the last time an
Hmm.
NFL player has been arrested, it's been a couple of
I guess I didn't realize that was on Pro Football Talk, but I've seen
yeah,
things like that.
yeah,
Yes.
it's on the bottom of PST, but it's uh it's been a while since they've had like a disparaging story, right, about AEW, and I think that helps. I think that helps everybody like real line their focus, get back to what they want to do, get back to being the best wrestling promotion and not sports entertainment or whatever they want to call it, and just get back to what everybody's paid to do, right? Like it's been a while since like wrestlers that are traveling have to like hear, oh, is it that bad behind the stage? Is it that
Hmm.
bad behind the curtain? Like, is it true nobody talks to each other? Is it true everybody hates Tony? Like, it's like, you know what I mean? It's like after a while, it's just like working in a toxic environment. You just keep questioning, why am I here? Right? So it's like the
Hmm.
fact that that's kind of like gone away for a bit, or somebody took Tony's phone from him, so he's not on Twitter at 2 a.m. starting stuff. Like it's just it it just seems they got back to business, as cliche as that sounds, right? Like they're just back doing what they're all paid to do, and the past 2 weeks have been great. Like, and yes, like you said, like we've seen on NXT, which we'll shortly talk about. If you have your big event already planned out, ready to go, your first event and something in between, you can easily plan a show, right? Because then
Yeah.
what? You're only getting 5, maybe 6 matches in 2 hours, if that, depending on how long you're letting them go, promos, whatever, special appearances. Like,
Hmm.
so it's like
Yeah.
if you got at least 2 of those events going, it probably makes Tony's life a lot easier putting the rest of it together. It's probably just plug and play at that point, right? Because never said they don't have the we've never said they don't have the talent to be successful. We've always questioned, is Tony the guy that can make successful, right?
Yep. Yep.
So it's just been good to see. I don't know what your thoughts were, but it's promising to see them start to tell storylines, even if the smallest thing is just a promo between Swerve and Osprey, and it's just Swerve actually using the wife and the kids' name, and it gets personal, or if it's Osprey telling Swerve he did good when he was in Hit Row, but Osprey's always had a hit list, and then the crowd reacts to it, right? Like it's just those subtle jabs of like, all right, you're the champ here, but I'm gonna be the champ eventually. And then
Yeah.
Swerve telling him, you're not ready to sacrifice what I had to sacrifice. So just by Swerve putting out that part of the promo about sacrificing, I think you can expect Swerve to go over on Osprey now. I don't think he drops. And I think if he drops, it's a big mistake because it's been too short.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
Let Osprey and Swerve go at it for a while. Have something else come in between, right? Like Bix and Batch. You don't got to go 0 to 100 right away, right? Like, and I felt like they did that a lot with Kenny and Osprey, just because that's what everybody expected out of Kenny and Osprey, based on what they've seen internationally, right? They both come
Yeah.
down, and then they're just flying off the ropes at each other, and it's Tiger Driver, it's backflip this, it's all chaos. Like so, this
Yep.
it's small things here or there that's like okay, they're actually trying. Like they're like it looks like they're paying attention to what's being said. So kudos to them. It's very promising. I mean, just think about it. Like if they continue to be great, TNA's been killing it. TNA's killing it with NXT, and NXT's gonna start on CW in October 1st, I think, on their Tuesday nights, and then
I
Raw's gonna
mean,
be on Netflix.
NXT.
This is the
So
best. This could be the best era of wrestling since the Attitude Era. If it all just starts to click for each of these companies.
yeah, I mean, I think it already kind of has been. It's
Yeah.
just AEW falling flat
Yeah.
in the mess of it. But if they pick it up, it definitely is.
Yes.
But I think it kind of already was. But NXT, like just because you just
Yeah.
mentioned them and
Well,
doing
let's
the
talk about
T
it.
the TNA thing. I mean, so I'm looking at Brandon's reporting on,
Yep.
um, you know,
WrestleNomics.
uh, yeah, and on the ratings and stuff. And I mean, this is just crazy from Tuesday. Well, it's not crazy. I guess it's expected. So Tuesday's quarter hour breakdown, right? So they start off with the battle royal, and I was texting you because you didn't have it on yet. Like we talked about this last week. Was it going to be a everyone starts in the ring type battle royal, or was it going to be a Royal
Yeah.
Rumble format? And it was everyone start in the ring, but of course, when NXT started, they still had a couple of people to quote unquote announce. They started before they went live. And um I actually didn't even notice it at the time. They started the show and it was on the ring, and there were 23 of the 25 guys out there already. And Frankie Kazarian was standing in the middle, which I didn't even recognize in the first place. And then I saw also, because I thought that was a little weird. I'm like, they didn't give Frankie like a special entrance. He's not an NXT guy, he's a
Right.
TNA guy. And on top of that, but then I realized they put it out on social media that he was in the building. And they showed him in his gear talking to Shawn Michaels. So I was like, oh, I missed that part. But anyway, so they start the show 719,000 to
Mm-hmm.
start. By 8:15, they were at 807, 807,000. They jumped nearly 100,000 in 10 minutes, basically. And you got to assume that's because the first person out of the curtain after the show goes live was Joe Hendry.
Oh yeah.
and and I'm sure what happened is anyone who didn't think the battle royal would be first and probably thought it was going to be last and thought, yeah, I'll tune in a few, whatever, I'll catch it. And then they probably see on Twitter immediately all these Joe Hendry memes and pictures and videos and going, holy crap, and everybody's got to click to get in there, right? And that bumps them almost 100,000 in the span of 15 minutes. Now they drop after the battle royal, which would be
Obviously.
expected, but they stayed above 700 for the first hour, dipped below it for most of the second hour, and then popped back up to 721 by the end, which included an overrun. So, um, you know,
Yeah, and for the 18 to 49 demo, they finished 0.26.
right.
It's not bad. Not bad for the developmental show.
Yeah, no, not at all.
Like if you I have it up to the chart, and if you look at the top 5, you have NXT from 618 at 724. You have Raw on 617, 1.747. You have AEW at 431. Rampage, so that AEW Collision, apologies, was on Saturday at 431. Rampage on that Friday at 334. And SmackDown on June 14th, that Friday as well, 1.959.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
like, it's crazy. They're over, total, the WWE shows are over 4 million, I believe.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's crazy.
And the Joe Hendry clip is their most popular
yeah.
social media clip, Twitter clip, whatever you want to say, since WrestleMania and CM Punk's return at Survivor Series and WrestleMania with Cody and Roman and all that stuff, which is crazy.
All the WWE shows, they total 4.430. 4.430, Dan. I mean, it's wild. Like,
And
it's wild, man. And I did read that they're not trying to overuse this TNA thing, which I think is the perfect thing, right? Like,
yeah,
like here, there, sprinkle it in. You don't have to go overload. Like, I did like Tommy Dreamer on Busted Open yesterday or today. I think it was today that he said, I mean, with the talent that you have, you could pick a pay per view in the fall and basically do TNA guys versus WWE guys or TNA girls versus WWE girls. I'm all for it. Just do a whole card of that. Just do a whole card of an invasion angle. Make it a pay per view.
Do your own Forbidden Door.
Right? Why not? The prohibited portal, as it's been called.
What they really ought to do is do this. This is pretty involved, but I don't see why they couldn't do it eventually. Is do a series of like you do a card all at NXT. NXT players or wrestlers are home. You do the same thing in a TNA show card. I don't know how you figure out the rubber match there, but assuming you probably split that in some cases, then you have to figure out how you do that. But they could do a whole thing of it and make a big competition slash angle slash invasion type thing, similar to how they've run Survivor Series in the past.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
You know, where right when they did the brand splits on Survivor Series and the brands were invading each other and, for a while and stuff and doing little dirty tricks and whatnot. I mean, oh my god, maybe you put TNA in War Games,
I,
right?
yeah, I
You
mean,
do
I
a
brought
War
that up on
Games.
the last. Yeah, that's what I brought up on the last pod.
Yeah.
At this point, why not?
You do a War Games at Stand and Deliver or whatever it would be called for
Yeah.
the Survivor Series weekend. Uh, NXT versus TNA. Like, I mean, the possibilities are endless. And yeah, if it's not overdone and oversaturated, it'll be good for a long time.
Oh yeah. Well, I think you're gonna get that turn of the events like you talked about of them doing like a home and away thing with Jordan and Roxanne. Because I don't. Because Jordan keeps saying, one day that's gonna be mine. So it's either she's gonna keep getting shots at Roxanne, or Jordan's eventually just gonna be full NXT, right? Like that's I think eventually gonna happen. To be honest, I still think WWE's buying TNA. I just for some reason I just cannot stop thinking about it. Like I don't know, like it just
We'll see. I mean, I suppose it's possible. One of the things I was thinking though is like, because at the end of the day, TNA may have a decent enough product and might offer certain wrestlers certain lifestyle or opportunity
yeah.
that they like. But I also think there's one part of me that wonders like, is TNA also like being smart here?
Oh,
Like this is good for their brand, don't get me wrong. It brings exposure. It's great for both companies. But also you're basically allowing auditions for WWE of your superstars. So, and I know you know, it's a little naive to say it that way because obviously WWE is well aware of what these people are doing. But it's a little bit different when you get them in your locker room, right? And you get them in your backstage for a bit. And, a year from now, if Joe Hendry's contract is up, like, hey Sean, hey Paul, what are you thinking? Like, and maybe they're thinking, man, he was great when he was backstage that one time. You know,
yeah.
I just wonder, like, are you potentially like you're helping yourself today, but in the future, are you potentially giving WWE an opportunity to lay a good foundation without tampering of what they have to offer? You know,
Oh, yeah, yeah. I mean,
it's like they're kind of on a site visit. Maybe they're no different than college recruiting, right? They're basically doing a site visit with TNA's blessing.
yeah.
And vice versa. But you just know everybody's dream is to get to WWE at some point. Like anybody who says that's never their dream is lying because they probably couldn't make it.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. I was thinking too when you were talking about that. What if TNA starts giving out like two-way contracts? Like, yeah, this is how many shows you expect to do at TNA, and then this is how many shows like WWE wants you for, right? And like if they get that option to do both. They get paid by WWE. They get paid. They probably take a little bit less from TNA to help out because they know they're gonna make it up on the back end from WWE. Like, what if WWE and TNA start talking about contracts that way as well, right? Like, because
Yeah.
Hunter's, because it's been said by Orton, a longtime veteran, it's been said by people at the developmental that Hunter has drastically changed the travel schedule. It's not the grind it's been. Like, he understands people want to be home for the holidays. Like, he understands people want to be with family. That's not, that has not what it's been since the day he became permanent there, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, man, I don't. It's just all great, right? Like it's just all great right now. Like it, as
Yeah.
boring as or as stale it kind of feels with Cody sometimes. I think Cody's gonna make that up on the back end when he becomes a heel. Because I think Cody, as a heel, is where it really takes off without the bloodline involved. but I think we're
Did you
gonna get
see?
the bloodline back before Cody turns a heel.
Did you see Undertaker's comments on that?
That Cody believes he's better, or that he believes that Cody he wanted Cody to come back as a heel, just a heel.
Yeah. He thinks Cody's run as a heel will be way better than this. Having said that, I thought I read, and maybe it was maybe it wasn't a good source, but because I can't remember what it was now. But I thought I read that he like sold crazy amounts of merch in Scotland,
Oh
and
yeah,
they sold something like several hundred replica belts that he was signing or
yeah.
something.
Well, what was the first international show he did?
Oh, the
Remember
first
that
one.
they said that they were already through 3 U-Hauls of belts from Cody. I forget it. It wasn't the Glasgow show, but when they did their first like U- U- Europe international tour and they had a pay-per-view. They
Well, it might have been the other. Was it the other Clash at the Castle, the one they did in Wales or Cardiff? I mean,
yeah.
yeah.
They said the belts were gone as soon as they opened up. Everything was gone. They were
The
on
the best the
the
best part. I pulled up an article about it while we're talking. The best part about it is, out of all this conversation, Scotland 316 was among the weekend's top selling items, but despite no Stone Cold Austin, Steve Austin.
yeah, man. It's legendary, right? It is
Uh,
legendary. Um, yeah. So about NXT, like we said, they did the 25-man battle royale to determine the next number one contender to face Trick Williams in Toronto. Which we were gonna go to, but since BlackRock is now making the prices for wrestling show tickets, I guess no one can afford it. Um, so I did have a question for you.
I, I have an answer.
Was this the first time you got to see Javon Evans?
Yes,
What'd you think?
I thought he was good. I like it.
He reminds me a lot of Swerve. Just he's taller, right? Like that's what it is.
Yeah.
Like they can kind of do, and his thing where he does like the corkscrew off the ropes. That's just wild that a human body can turn like that, right? So, um, yeah. So I guess they opened with him making his entrance. Then he was followed by Joe Hendry. Um,
That's true. He did make the first entrance. It was him, Hendry, then um, Ethan Page.
yeah, and then Ethan Page, and Ethan Page played his part well of being the guy that complains when he was backstage with the Rock's daughter yelling and screaming and whatnot. Um, I thought Kazarian did well. I thought Tony D'Angelo did well. Um, but yeah, I mean, I thought it was great. Like, and Javon Evans eliminates Sean Spears, who I thought also looked really good in the ring. The last couple times I saw him at AEW, he looked slow. He looked like he was not into it. Um, but yeah, I thought it was awesome. Um, well done. Ballsy putting it on first, but I do love that. Just like what they did on the PLE, putting AJ and Cody on first. That takes some big set of stones to do it, but it done well. It obviously works as we saw. Followed up by that was JC Jane and Jasmine Nix versus Lola Vice and Roxanne Perez. Lola and Roxanne win, where Roxanne basically gives Lola a smack, yeah, a back fist, and drops her. Um, and then Ethan Page is backstage complaining, doing his part well, screaming at everybody. Still looks jacked as ever. Like he fits the role perfectly. If you're building a wrestler in a lab in your basement or somewhere, like Ethan Page is like the standard thing that the computer is gonna print out. Like he has it all, right? He has
Yeah.
it all. Um,
Hmm.
Mia Yim was competing for the NXT Women's North American Championship, which I thought was kind of um, quick for that one since it's a brand new title. I thought they were gonna let that breathe for a bit, but she got beat by Claney Jordan. So Claney retains, and then you had Carly Bright versus Fallon Haney. Fallon Haney wins. Chase U versus the Good Brothers. No one cares about the Good Brothers. Chase U wins. Um, and then you had All Ego Ethan Page versus Javon Evans. And Ethan Page wins in pinfall on Ego that Sean Spears. And then it says post match Sean Spears hits the ring and attacks Evans. Trick Williams makes a save, but Ethan Page joins with Spears to beat down Trick. Javon dives on them, double ace scratcher. All four men are down and out. And that's how the show basically ends. Picture perfect if you're putting a 2 hour show together. I don't
Yeah.
think there's one slow part in that whole match. Maybe the Fallon Haney match, but the crowd of NXT loves her. So I don't know if you can consider. I mean, you could probably consider the in ring stuff slow, but with how big of a fan she seems to be becoming with everybody in the NXT studio, or how much of they're becoming fans of her. Apologies there. Um, I mean, yeah, is she a little bit slow in the ring? Sure. But the crowd loves her, right? So it's like, I mean, picture perfect. Picture perfect by Sean once again. Can do no wrong. So, yeah, it was great. I'll definitely pop in next week as well, just because I want to see what, if anything's gonna happen. Uh, I do like, Oba Femi against Wes Lee. Um, my concern is I kind of want Wes Lee to be back healthy for a while, and I think Oba might be a little bit too stiff for him, just like we saw in that power bomb. That I don't want him to put him back on the injured reserve. So,
Yeah.
um, but that'll be good. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. We just ran through it. I think we all talked about the highlights of it. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about NXT? I mean, it was for somebody that doesn't watch it every Tuesday. Like, did you think this was a good card?
I thought it was a great card. I mean, I watched most of the show without tuning out. Um, here and there a little bit, but no, I pretty much watched it through, which I just don't typically do.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you usually say you like have it on in the background while you're doing all the stuff. So,
Yeah, I
um,
definitely paid more attention to it.
yeah, I mean, it's I mean, I don't know what else to say. Like, it's been hitting on all cylinders. 724 for the developmental show, 0.26. That 0.26 is basically double what Collision and Rampage had the Saturday and Friday before. So it's like at point 0.3 was Collision, 0.12 was Rampage. So like
Yeah.
it has to be doing something right, right? They're at 4.4 with all the shows, plus everything they post online, plus now with how big Sam Roberts is becoming on Raw Talk, and then
Yeah.
his not Sam show as well is feeding off of that because he keeps doing an emergency podcast for it all. So it's
Hmm.
like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I guess the next big thing to discuss. Did you have, did you have anything on your list that you wanted to pull out there, Dan? Um,
No, I don't have much because I was gonna the only thing I this is a little bit jumping back
yeah,
to AEW, but I was gonna ask you since you had some positive reviews here, like the funny part is none of the positive reviews you mentioned when we started were about MJF.
yeah. I mean, I'm glad he's back, right? but I don't think he's done anything to say, "Oh man, that's why I'm so glad he's back." Like I'm glad the character is back, right?
Yeah.
And like I said, what was it, a week ago, or was it the debut? Was it the season premiere, Dan, that I said he's just somebody you need in wrestling, no matter where he is, even if he's on the indie scene, you would see him all over your Twitter. So, if, like him
Yeah.
being back anywhere, just helps grow. I know they don't want to call it that. Sports entertainment wrestling to the max, because every company hitting, they're all gonna get bigger deals done, right? Like,
Yeah.
so it's like I'm just glad he's back. I'm just glad we're getting into a time where everybody appears to be healthy. I mean, we just got Seth Rollins back on Raw. Like, we thought he was done in what, at least a year. The way he was hobbling around,
Yeah.
like, you know what I mean. So
Yeah.
him just coming out looking like he's a plantation owner with that top hat and everything. He's down from South, like, it's just wild, wild. Um, yeah, I mean, it's what the past 2 weeks have been nonstop great shows on every night that there's been wrestling on. TNA's been great. You have Ace Steel getting back into it with Frankie Kazarian, and they're gonna have a street fight tonight, a Chicago street fight. So
Yeah.
I think we know one guy that could show up to Chicago from WWE, right? Like,
That would be amazing.
you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like, it's just,
That'd be hilarious.
I mean, why not at this point? You're hitting on everything. Why not take the shot, right? Why not take the shot? Send Punk over there. Let him do what he do. Uh, and then Fightful has an article that Charlotte Flair is progressing well. So her D is hitting the standards of everything that they want. Um, her strength tests are getting back to where she's supposed to be to get back in the ring. I mean, now I'm just jumping all over the place, but like, this is how excited I am that we're hitting again. Like, everything's hitting. Everybody's getting back healthy. We're getting back for the stretch of summer. Like,
Yeah.
you're getting Punk back healthy. He looks physically the best he's ever looked, I think. Because even when he came back to AEW, he looked too top heavy. It just looked like his body did not support that. Now he looks like trimmed, but he looks like cut. He looks like he's ready to go. Um, yeah, I mean, so I guess you want to talk about Raw then, since my
Yeah.
ADD took over there for a bit.
Yeah. Let's do it.
All right, let me pull this up. Well, like I said, it starts with Seth Rollins coming on down, which we both started to turn into Dr. House, just trying to figure out how he returned so quickly, right? Like, I believe we were on Xbox and it was like, there's no way he had a complete tear if he's already back now. Like, they're like, and I get this guy works hard, but Jesus, like,
Yeah. I mean, there had to be like some good news somewhere, or
yeah,
like, I don't know. Like, I wish like somebody knew, because it's kind of crazy. But
I know.
um,
This is so. This is why, like, I've always wished like wrestling had like an injury report, like, just so you could see how people are progressing, right? Like, just so you could be like, bro, you could barely stand on that leg at WrestleMania. Like,
yeah,
you were crutched
that
over, and all of a
that
sudden
le-
you're back. Like,
that leg bent ways that it's not supposed to bend, and no one was touching you
his
at the time.
knee
Like,
bent one way, the bottom of the shin bent the other way. Like,
Yeah, and he was just laying there, and it just flopped that way, and I was like, you literally can't stand,
no.
right? Like you barely could complete the spot you needed to complete, and you took a hit totally up top, and we watched your leg go like this in
Yeah.
the air, like, and at the knee, just
Yeah.
like, I mean, I was just like, wow. And then here it is. That was April 7th,
Yeah.
and it's June 18th, and all of a
Yeah.
sudden he's setting him up for a match. So it's by the time he wrestles, assuming he doesn't wrestle until Money in the Bank,
He probably
by
won't,
the
I don't
time
think.
he, by the time he wrestles, it will have been exactly 90 days, basically, right? Because Money in the Bank's like July 4th weekend, isn't it?
Yeah, it's July 5th. Yep.
So, and it was April 7th when we saw it, and we knew that that knee was already in trouble, but I think he injured it on April 6th, even more on April 6th in the tag match. So it's literally almost been exactly 90 days. So yeah, I don't know. Like either I don't know. Either he has the doctor that can fix Achilles heel
Bro,
tears, as, or like I don't know what's going on.
yeah, I,
Actually, it will be 90 days, April 6th to July 6th.
yeah,
That's wild.
yeah, yeah. I was expecting at least 8 months. Because I figured they would had to clean it out. It usually swells after they clean out the leg. PT. If anything else was completely torn, that would have had to heal. I was thinking at least 8 months. I thought by the fall, early Christmas, we get him back.
I mean, Bleacher Report from April 19th says he had surgery for a torn meniscus.
Yeah,
And that Becky Lynch was the one who revealed it on
the podcast,
the
right?
Late Late Show. The
Yeah.
Late Late Show, I guess. Grade 2 MCL tear and a partially torn meniscus in his left knee in January. And then he took off those couple of months. They just did rehab, right, and rest, and then he got surgery right after WrestleMania. I mean, I know like torn meniscus isn't as big a deal in comparison anymore, but
Yeah, 3 to 6
MCL,
months. Yeah,
like, I
he's
mean,
a freak.
he's right on the three of the 3 to 6. He's right at the three, which is just crazy. But you know, hey,
Yeah. Well, and
not
it's
well, not even really, because according to this, she revealed that he had just had it, and that was the week of the 19th. So he's really under the 3 months, not by much, but it's still under.
yeah.
So, and I understand he's in great shape and he's an athlete and all that, but that also sometimes to me makes me think that takes more conditioning and rehab to fix,
Oh yeah.
because your body is like, you really push those areas. Like it's not like you and me would need a lot of time to recover, but it's not like we're going out and doing anything super physically to begin with. So
No,
like,
yeah, yeah, no,
you know,
we were both shocked, right? Like we thought he blew everything up. Like so but I'm just glad to have him back and it's
I'm still
ballsy that
shocked.
he is Damian Priest and Seth for the title at Money in the Bank. Like that's awesome. For everybody that gets to
Yeah.
go, that is awesome. That's going to be a hell of a card. Um so that's cool that we got him back. Um Yeah, I mean, it's incredible, right? Like once again, we're just sitting through this time and we just can't believe it's happening. Like we're just like this is amazing. Um but after that on Raw, it was the women's Money in the Bank qualifying match, which is Io Sky versus Kiana James and the Lena Vega. Obviously,
Mhm.
it was Sky going to get the win. I don't think they were going to put anybody else over her. They're very big on her, very very big. So Um, you know, kudos to her. I'm starting to get the style of EOS guy. She's great in the ring, but it just you got to put her. You got to do something else. And I get she just dropped the title, but when she dropped the title, I'm just like, oh, who cares? Like, I guess the most interesting thing of that is when Liv came to the ring wearing Dominic's purple cow vest. Um, and then that basically ended up to Dom finding Liv backstage, Liv starting to unzipper the vest, and then Dom starting to unzipper it, and Damien walks in and he yells at him. Why does it feel like we're getting a rated R Superstar 2.0? Like it feels like they're just lining this up for Netflix,
Maybe.
right? Like it just feels like it,
I didn't think about that, but yeah, maybe.
right? Like, um, so kudos to Liv and thank you to Liv, for all of us. Uh, Jey Uso, Finn Balor, and Rey Mysterio. Obviously, we called that Jey was gonna win, right?
Yeah.
Like he's like Cody gave him the show, so you can't expect him to lose anything big. Like, um, I think it's funny though that Finn keeps getting kind of buried. Um, because at what point do you snap that branch of okay, Finn's pissed off, he keeps losing, the Judgment Day's not helping him. When do we get the animal back? Like when do we get the beast back? Right? Like that'll be great. Um, so I mean, it was a decent match. Like it's what Jay and Finn and Ray can bring you for sure. I don't think anybody expected, oh, this is going to be the best thing on the card, but like it was good. Did you see There's a quote from Rey Mysterio that came out this week as well, about how he never became the bad guy because he doesn't understand how he would do it in his character. But then he said, "Who
I didn't see that.
Yeah, but then he said, "Who knows? Baby, before I'm done, I'll just snap and everybody can see like an evil side of me." Which would be interesting. Like, right?
Would be interesting. It could really like end his career kind of interesting and give him a little bit of a boost.
Yeah. Yeah. So before we get to talk about the Wyatt Six, basically Braun Strowman versus Chad Gable, which I just think is hysterical because he was throwing Chad around the way like I used to throw my wrestling buddies around. It's not even fair. Like Braun just makes people like it's just insane, right? Like Braun just
Yeah.
makes people look like action figures next to him. Um, and it's funny that the highest peaks of merch that Braun has ever had, besides like the original Bray Wyatt family shirt, it's the big SOB shirt that was basically coined from Pat McAfee. Like that's awesome. Um, then you had Carlito defeating Dragon Lee, which I would definitely have Dragon Lee over Carlito. I think Dragon Lee needs that more than Carlito does. But then we had Drew came to the ring, said he's been screwed by this company, screwed by Punk. He's tired of it. He just hates it all, and he said he quit. My dad actually called me after this to figure out if it was storyline or if Drew really just walked off the job. Because he's a big fan of Drew.
I assume I assume this is just a story arc to get him off TV so he can tend to his wife, right? Because his wife legitimately did have like some emergency surgery.
Oh, I didn't read that.
Yeah, which is also interesting because Punk like used that in his post show presser. Um um where he said like something about like breaking promises to his wife, but then he was like, "But I really hope like she's okay," because I think like
Yeah,
I
it's
don't
just
know.
said an emergency surgery, but it doesn't say what it would be. Well, yeah, hopefully she bounces back from it well, and and everything's okay.
Yeah, because she couldn't make it in the long run to Clash at the Castle. So he, obviously still competed.
Yeah.
And I wonder if they were like, okay, well, we'll give you time to go help and be there for her. So we'll do an angle and you're just gonna quit.
But once again, like that would have never got done that way with Vince, right? Like there would have. I don't think
Probably not.
you would have never got that time off from everything that we hear. So,
Either that or they would have done some weird like beat down
yeah,
angle after the
which
match, stretcher job,
right, in reality is Punk really gonna beat down McIntyre that bad that he puts him on a stretcher? I mean,
No.
right. So like you would have got to the end of that and you would have been like, this says Vince written all over it. Like so, yeah, but quick recoveries. Hope everything's well. Drew's a big part to this company, but obviously he has to tend to the family, so hopefully we get him back. And I know he's been bugged by an elbow injury too. That's why he's been having the sleeve on and off. So maybe the time away will help get him back to 100%, and then Tim and Punk can just steamroll because I think that's going to be great when it does hit. Um, then we had just to talk about Caden Carter and Katana Chance versus Damage Control, which Caden Carter and Katana beating Damage Control makes me think, why do we still have Damage Control? But that's a different rant for a different day. You had Sheamus defeating Braun Breaker via disqualification, which, okay, it's clean because Braun technically didn't lose. It was a disqualification. But what do you think they do with Braun? Are you thinking they go like a Goldberg angle, or are you thinking they go more of a Brock where he's just like a featured entertainment?
I think more of a Brock for now.
So
I
like,
think it's hard.
I mean,
I think it's hard to do a Goldberg angle
yeah, anymore, right?
in today's
Yeah,
atmosphere because you just have to feed them nobodies for a long time and low to mid card people, but it just doesn't really work. People aren't invested long term enough, I think, to do that kind of story.
yeah. Well, and like with the streak and everything going on, like there's obviously fellow wrestling journalists that we hear about all the time that like the exaggerate certain stories that they've told by guys that wear tassels on their boots constantly. So God knows what that will get published. You know who I'm talking about, Uncle Dave. But yeah, I mean, I was trying to think about this, right? Because I do think Braun is the athlete they need to eventually carry, like after Roman and Cody and Seth, right? But it's like, who below the tier A guys do you send Braun after? I like Sheamus because Sheamus is a veteran. Like Sheamus can keep Braun healthy in there. It's not a other like rookie guy that you have to worry about with Braun breaking and whatnot. Um, I like the Ludwig art, uh, the Ludwig angle as well because I think it's with Gunther trying to go after a title and then his second guy like trying to do his own thing as well. I think that's pretty cool, right? Because then they can always tie Gunther back into whatever Ludwig is doing based on their prior childhood friendship. So that's awesome. Like you could throw Gunther in there. I mean, who would like what would I wouldn't do Sami Zayn for the title.
No, I wouldn't either.
I mean,
Not get it. Not yet, at
no, I
least.
don't think he's earned it, right? Like, why throw him in there? And I don't think Sammy's style works with Braun. Like it,
No,
so it's
probably
like,
not.
I don't like that's the thing. I don't know. Like, who do you put him? Trying to see. Let me pull up the roster.
I think that's a problem in general, and that's why I'm kind of like, I don't know. I'm not too impressed with this at all. Like
Impressed with the Braun
with
angle
yeah,
or just
anything to
Braun in
do
general?
well, anything to do with him right now. Um, this whole, I mean, just this whole persona of him right now with the craziness and all that. I don't
Well,
know. It
which I
just
kind
doesn't
of
do anything for me.
yeah, and that's why I was wondering why they broke up the lone wolves so quickly, like him and Baron Corbin. Like that was actually working. Like we watched that tag match on the pay per view here, and that was actually good. Like I don't understand why. Like I got okay, cool. I get it. He got drafted, right? Like awesome. Like Braun got the call to the show. You're telling me you can't have like Baron Corbin just walk around with him on the big roster as like his backup, like his like vet veteran guy. Like it, you know what I mean? Because then you can
Yeah.
always throw them into any type of tag team match. Like I don't
Yeah.
know. Like it's like I don't under like I just don't understand that. Like I don't know if Baron's contract was coming due or Baron just wasn't. I don't know. It's very frustrating because I thought that was actually pretty cool. Um, I mean, if you could tell the story somehow, you could do Braun versus Andrade, but then he's going to be on the speed title, right? So then you kind of hide Braun from everybody for a bit. Oh, Baron's still on here, so um, I mean, if Big E was back, you could do Big E. You could do Bobby Lashley, I guess, if you want to do power for power. You could do Braun. I would watch Braun and Braun go at it. Uh, what a tongue twister that is. Uh, I mean, what the Creed brothers? I think the Creed brothers outshine Braun now. Like I think the Creed brothers are more of a name than Braun just spearing everybody, right? Like Chad Gable's already in a story. Yeah, I don't know what you do. I think that's the tough part. Drew's gone for a bit. I mean, Ethan Page is on NXT. Finn, I don't know. I think Ivar's gone for a little bit with injury. I mean, or if when Cena comes back, you have Braun take over the whole Brock versus Cena thing. Like Braun's just tired of the veterans coming back, but it's like we saw that with Brock, right? Like,
Yeah, and we've seen it with like Randy as
yeah,
Legend Killer, and we've seen it, with a bunch of people who have always tried to quote unquote retire the old guys. Yeah, that's why, like, I mean, you're in a way just like making my point a little bit. Like, I
no,
don't know where
it's
this goes. I don't know where it goes. I don't know where, what I want to see out of it. And to be honest, it doesn't add much for me today. So like, yeah, like I mean, sometimes when he makes a few of these things, or like the other day when he came around the ring and he freaking tackled or
yeah,
shoulder, I was like, holy crap, like
yeah, he
that
had,
was a that was a train collision.
yeah,
But I mean, other than
but
that,
that's it.
and then that was, yeah, like then that feeling, I was like, wow. And then it was over. Then
Yeah,
I didn't care.
yeah, it's a
So
freak attraction at this point.
it's hard to get invested in it, I guess,
I mean,
at all.
Braun versus Omos.
Yeah.
Yeah, Braun
Not really a
versus
big.
Otis.
I'm not a big Omos guy, so
I'm not
like it
either.
doesn't really. So it kind of like, that doesn't do anything for me. Otis, yeah, I mean, fine, but
Doesn't do
like
anything right. Agreed. No,
nothing is triggering me to say, yeah, I want to see that. No, like literally nothing.
Ricochet's still on the roster here.
Yeah, I don't think
They take him
I thought
off.
I thought I read well, I thought I read that technically his contract isn't up until maybe the end of this month,
Oh, okay.
but like they just decided to end his story, because they didn't have anything else to build to, I think. I thought I read that. So like even though he gave them the intent not to re-sign, his contract wasn't up on
Yeah.
whatever day that Raw was.
Yeah, I mean, I thought for sure. So with Ethan Page making his debut on NXT, I thought for sure with Braun getting the suspension for what he did to Ricochet, I thought that was their way to protect him and take him off TV for a bit. Because I was going into that whole like ambulance stretcher type ordeal as they realized they really don't have anything for Braun right now. So this is their way for Adam Pearce to be like, Braun, that's it, 3 months suspension. You're at home, right? Like, and then with guys you could bring over from TNA, they start throwing stuff in the pot of like, all right, we want Braun to come back, but like, how do we do it, right? So like, it gives them pressure-free time to figure out what do we do with Braun. But then
Yeah.
he was back the next week spearing the shit out of people. So it's like,
Right.
okay, what are we doing? I mean, that's my only complaint with this so far. Like, that's been my only complaint. Um, yeah, I mean, it's crazy, man. It is crazy. So then, as the show was going out, it got dark, Dan. It got dark and scary.
Got very dark and scary. And the ominous music started and the
Some
door appeared.
some would say it got so dark and scary that if my mom was driving through there, she would lock her car door. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
I knew you were
So,
gonna say that.
uh, what?
Anyway,
All right.
let's just move on.
Okay, the Wyatt faction. So right here they have it as the Wyatt Six or Six faction, which is awesome, badass. Uh, I think we all know by now that Uncle Howdy is his brother Bo Dallas, the Ramblin' Rabbit.
What?
Yeah, you didn't
What?
know? You didn't know, Dan?
Huh,
My bad.
what?
My bad. Spoilers. Spoilers for this
Spoiler
part of the
alert.
podcast.
Spoiler alert. Everybody turn down your volume.
Yeah, right.
Jeez.
Yeah, put it on mute if you haven't watched Raw yet. Um, it, it, it's good
Anyway.
to see that Eric Rowan is back. I'm glad he's back home. This is where he belongs, especially after the passing of, you know, his two best friends, Brody and Bray. Like, it's just good to get him back in the locker room, so he's around people that actually like care about him and that want his well-being up. Dexter Loomis as Mercy the Buzzard, which I find this to be very undervalued. I think this is huge for him and for the faction. Um, Nikki Cross is Abby the Witch, aka Sister Abigail, which I think is also very huge. And Joe Gacy as Huskus the Pig Boy. It's awesome,
Okay.
right? Like um, yeah. I mean, they killed a lot of people. Like
Or they definitely beat a lot of people.
yeah. Like we saw Chad Gable with blood out of the side of his head, just sitting next to like an audio box, right? Like
Yeah, it was funny because like they kind of made it look like a gunshot wound.
yeah, yeah. That's what everybody was saying, right? Like
It's like
I don't know.
easy here.
Yeah, well, once again, like preparing for Netflix now, like
Let's hope.
right, like is that when they get really dark? Um, yeah, I'm trying to see, which is
Well, and I
awesome.
like.
Yeah,
I
go
mean,
on.
I just liked too, like the little like Easter eggs that each character had or seemingly had related to them. The two obvious ones were Ramblin' Rabbit is carrying the old sledgehammer from what was the second incarnation of
The Bludgeon Brothers.
Bludgeon Brothers with him
Brody.
and Brody, which or Luke Harper to them,
Yeah.
which just a nice little like ode to him and ode to Bray, right? Because that was all
And the Bludgeon Brothers were awesome. Awesome
right.
as a tag team.
And Dexter's still wearing the gloves
Yep.
that he's always worn. I'm not as familiar with Joe Gacy, but I'm going to assume there's something there. And I also wondered too, like, did Uncle Howdy have dreads before?
He had, yeah, it was kind of the Fiend's
Did
hair,
he?
right? I
Well,
believe.
and that's what I was thinking, like, were those dreads and hair like more of a tribute to Bray and the
Yeah,
Fiend?
because Bo doesn't have that.
Well,
Bo's.
and I didn't think Uncle Howdy had that before either. So, um, I thought that was nice. And then I haven't figured out, but there must be one for Nikki Cross's character too. So
Yeah. And then I don't know if you saw the pictures. Um, yeah, he had braids right here. Let me see if I can. Yeah, because Bray had braids, so that was a throwback to Bray with it. But I just had to give me 1 second here. Um, so Tuskus the Pig Boy is kind of like a throwback to
Husky
Husky
Harris.
Harris is who what Bray was.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so that's cool. Um, yeah, let's see. Yeah, so it's just well, and it's great, right? Because like, if you remember back when Nikki Cross was Dickie Ash, um, she was kind of trying to connect it all back in the day with Alexa Bliss, right?
yeah.
So that kind of just helps. Like, okay, are we gonna see her back in this somehow, right? Like,
Yep.
so yeah, I mean, it's great. Yeah, and like I said, I don't know if you caught it, but on Uncle Howdy's gloves or on Bo's hand, he had Bray.
Yeah, I did. Well, I didn't see it in the time, but I read it.
Yeah, so that was
That
cool to see the
he's
pictures
on.
of.
Well, and the glove is the one that says hurt.
Yep,
I read that part where Bray always had the hurt and
and
heal
love.
or
Yeah,
whatever,
yep,
and he's only hearing
yep,
he's only wearing the hurt one with Bray's name on it.
yeah. Yeah, I mean it's awesome, right? It's sad, but it's I don't know. It's sad because when it first hits, I'm like, oh yeah, Bray's back, but then I kind of remember of like, oh no, we're not getting Bray back. So it's like, it's just it's tough. It is truly tough.
I I'm very interested to see where this goes.
Well, so yeah, so to talk about that, here's a list of everyone I think they tacked, and these aren't like they went after jobbers. So Carmelo Hayes, Gunther, Dominic, Triple H, Chad Gable, and Cody Rhodes, all as victims.
Is that based on what we saw?
These superstars were either confirmed to have been attacked on camera or are highly assumed to be victims based on the aftermath of the show. The shocking conclusion left fans in the universe anxiously anticipating the repercussions of the coming week's events. I mean, Jesus Christ! Like, if they're gonna show up and just start destroying everybody, like, WoW's gonna get crazy. Like, Would you add Braun Strowman back into this?
Add him into it. Um, oh, I see how they're determining who was. Man, these people that like go down these rabbit holes of trying to figure everything out and who like and like dissecting every picture. um,
Well, some of them are kind of easy, right?
well, obviously the Chad Gable one, but without like staring at still shots, I don't
Oh,
think in the
yeah.
moment you see it,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
But
Like you definitely have to take a second look. Yeah, I agree with you.
um, some of them I think are made they look like they were just the quote unquote security guys.
Yeah. Well, if you
Like
check,
I'm trying to figure out where Cody Rhodes is like hinted here, you know, um, or Triple H, which would be a little weird, but I guess it's possible. To answer your question, I would probably not add Braun Strowman at this point, unless you do some sort of like takeover story where they like attack them or and maybe kidnap him, take him, and basically make him become one of them. Um, but otherwise, no, I wouldn't. Um, I'm trying to think like, was there another character? But it was really just the Fiend, isn't it? Or Bray Wyatt and the Fiend, right? Like in the Funhouse.
yeah, I mean, he was technically still Bray there, right?
Well, he was there, but like then the Fiend was really like, yeah, I guess he was still Bray, but yeah, it's tough because he kind of it was an alter ego, right? I'm trying to think if there was, yeah, because they won't bring back the devil representation of Vince McMahon, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So I guess that was it. Abby the Witch, Ramblin' Rabbit, Mercy the Buzzer, and Huskus the Pig. So
Yeah, it's wild, man. Like
there
it's
were no, yeah. So I mean, it would have been the Fiend was the only other one. Um,
well, and Chad was replaced in the Money in the Bank qualifier after the attack. So
yeah,
R.I.P. to Chad Gable.
because and that's the other thing, right? They're the Wyatt Six. There's only five of them, but is the sixth thing just the tribute to Bray,
It
right?
could be, or Alexa Bliss isn't back yet,
Right.
which I would be okay if that's the six, right? Because she was his like number one, right? Because remember when she pinned Orton and she sat on Orton's groin, and Orton's wife got pissed backstage at her because of how she pinned him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. It's great to have back. Like, and did you see that the Wyatt Six um shut down the Pat McAfee show today too? At
Yeah.
the end of it,
Yeah.
which awesome.
I have you seen that thing? I don't know if this has been confirmed or not. That it's not Wyatt Six like the numeral
It's
anymore. It's
Wyatt
Wyatt
Six Six.
Sicks.
So the way hold on, let me put it for you.
Because Wyatt Six came from his Twitter account originally, right? Didn't he change it to Wyatt Six at one point? But he used a number.
Yeah, I just had it. Let me hold on. Yeah, keep talking. I'll find it. I just had it up.
I also like that they kind of changed up a little bit the look of Uncle Howdy, you know?
Yeah. So Sporting News has it as being confirmed as this: Wyatt 666, like that. Uh oh, did we lose Dan at the end of the show? We lost him. Oh no. Hey, you back? Yeah.
Okay.
So like we were talking about, they got the Wyatt 6, like that 6 like that is how Sporting News is calling it, and this is everybody. So did you see any of Joey Gacy in NXT?
No, I really didn't. So like that I'm very unfamiliar with him in general. Like I've seen a little, so I'm aware of him, but um no, I haven't seen a ton of him.
So he ran a cult like faction in NXT as well. He is. It used to be called the Schism.
Right. I do remember that
Yeah,
name.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, if anybody that can continue, like you can't replace Bray, right? You can't replace Bray of like what he meant to wrestling, like what he meant to us watching wrestling. You can't replace his character, but like if you can, I guess, add another tool to the belt to like help build this in memory of Bray. I mean, he has to be top on your list, right? Like he gets the whole cult personality thing. He gets the psychology of it. He has
Yeah.
experience doing it. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like it makes sense. Like everybody in here makes sense. Like Uncle Howdy, his brother, makes sense. Bringing back Eric makes sense because the WWE universe was pretty pissed and sad when his contract was gone. Dexter, it makes sense because he's always played a creepy character, right? Like he stalked and
Yeah.
kidnapped
Yeah.
everybody. Nikki Cross, people hated when she was the superhero, and then Nikki Ash, she's back to being the character that everybody loved. And then you bring in Joe Gacy as well. I mean, I don't know. Like it's like, is this the most interesting thing on Raw right now?
Um it's the most intriguing for sure.
Do you think
It's
because it just hit, or because of the storyline that we have no idea what they're gonna do?
we have no idea. For me, it's because we have no idea
Yeah,
what's next, right?
agreed.
And to me too, like that's going to be very interesting. That's very intriguing. But at the same time, like it's going to be interesting because I think it has to hit. Because if it doesn't, I just don't know what happens because this is a very odd thing. It's risky. I'm happy they're doing it, but it's risky to do this without Bray Wyatt,
Oh,
right?
extremely, extremely.
So, and doing it for honoring legacy and all that, I love. I don't have a problem with it, but I have a fear that if they don't do it right, it's just a bad memorial, you know? And so that's tough. Now, it's going to have a little bit of breathing room that people are going to give it just for the fact that the whole purpose of it is honoring him. So people aren't going to be too critical too quickly. Um, but I do wonder, you know, where it's going and what they're doing because they've been, teasing this for months, right? and they've been laying out these little Easter eggs for people to follow a trail, and that's been fun and whatever. But now it's time to, now they're here, and they, behind closed doors, wreaked havoc in the back, and then just presented themselves, which everybody knew was happening, but they haven't done anything that we've seen. So when are we going to see us, and what are we going to see? Um, I forget who I was reading on Twitter that said like they also can't lose anytime soon because then you ruin it.
No, you
So
can't.
they have to be dominant. They have to pick and choose their spots. They can't be upset by anyone. Like,
I
so
I, I don't know if
then
I
what?
would bring them back this current week. I would just let it stew for a week.
Dexter Loomis looks so different with a beard.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't even look like him to me.
No, and he looks
And he
huge.
and he grew his hair out.
And he looks huge. Like his
Yeah.
arms, like he looks bigger than he does on TV. And Eric is just sitting there, just a monster of a man. Look at like,
Right. Oh, and Nikki Cross is wearing the
a,
Wyatt Six
yep,
shirt.
yep,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be
Would you have
interesting for
them
sure.
appear again on Monday, or would you just have it be talked about throughout the show? Kind of. I think I would take a week or two off with them, like actually being in the
Oh,
building.
um, I don't think I'd take a week or two off because I think like you've got a lot of intrigue still, and they still haven't done anything other than
Killed
they laid out
9
some
people.
people. Well, I mean, like they laid out some people. Like I said, we didn't get to see that happen. We just saw the aftermath. So I think you could still do that, right? You could keep doing that where they make some appearances and you don't see how, but somebody's laid out and you don't know why that person yet. Like people have dug through, you sent it to me. People have dug through and um tried to figure out the why Chad Gable, right?
Oh, with the GC.
Him, yeah, him being the guy we know for sure. You know, maybe they reveal some more people next week, or maybe you find a couple of people that are in the back and just laid out, and then you see the group standing around them. I'd probably do things like that for now, and I do it pretty consistently. Um, if nothing else, you have to continue to do QR codes and things like that that get people talking about what's next, right?
Yeah,
So if you don't have them physically there, you still have them infiltrating with the random interruptions and the breaks, with the flashes of a code or something, so that people can go down and invest in what they're doing, and maybe it leads to a hint of who's next, right? Or an explanation of why Gable, right?
yeah,
Because Gable was kind of in this storyline they're developing with Alpha Academy. So now I don't know if that's going to finish, or if I don't know what's happening.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's crazy, right? Like it's, I don't know. Yeah, because it says you changed. You stopped saying thank you, Chad Gable. Yeah, I mean,
Thank you.
yeah. Like, and that was something that Bray would do, right? Like, Bray was always big on, like, the characters that would be attacked were the ones he think that were taking everything for granted and, like, were different. That just tried to be different than what they truly are. And Bray was basically showing them their true selves when he got a hold of them. So it's like, I only said a week off because I was thinking you could have everybody still talk about this during Raw on Monday, but you could start Raw by showing what happened to everybody that was supposedly attacked. Like start Raw off that way, then lead into some matches, then have the announcers talk about what was shown at the beginning of the show, and then by the time you know it, it's already done for that night, right? And then
Yeah.
week 2, bring them back to cause chaos.
Yeah.
So like you're still telling the story, they just don't have to be there for you to tell it. But then week 2 starts off with them just dragging bodies to like a van or something, right? Like just
Right.
random security, like they're just stuffing bodies in a van or something like that. Like go full like Texas Chainsaw with it at that point. Because if you're gonna show blood like this already, why not? Right? Like why? I don't know. I don't know, man. It's crazy. It's the QR codes are sweet too, and it's like it's awesome.
Yeah.
It's awesome. So, yeah, but I mean that's all I had to talk about. With Raw and NXT and AEW. Was there anything else you wanted to hit on, Daniel?
No, I think that's it.
Oh, there's one more thing. So I was
Oh,
listening to the Mask Man podcast today, and they had on Mark Ramondi. He's been a journalist for UFC and MMA for ESPN about 10 years now, and now he is a journalist. Oh, he's a beat reporter for the Atlanta Falcons. Well, his
mhm.
side project, an editor at Simon and Schuster emailed him and asked if he wanted to write a book about the NWO. So there's going to be a specific book to the NWO coming out 9 months from now. It's called How Professional Wrestling's New World Order Changed America. Say hello to the bad guys. Mark Ramondi. So, I mean,
Okay.
it's cool. Like, I know I'm gonna buy it, right? Like, I'm gonna be a sucker and I'm gonna buy it. It's gonna happen. Like, it's gonna have to be on my bookshelf. Um, but he said there's a lot of different stories. He said he's the first wrestling journalist that's ever been able to get the lawsuit between WWE and WCW. He has all like 4,000 pages of that, so he's been going through that um, of what like that actually entailed. He actually found the individual that created the NWO logo, and it took him a bit because what he said, and he just gave the deadline. She worked for a third-party company at the time that WCW had hired. So she's the actual one that was sitting on the computer designing that logo. So he has some stories from her and stuff. Um, and then he's just talking about like the generational push that it had, right? Like talking
That's
about, yeah,
No, that's interesting because I wonder what Eric's going to say about all this because I was just googling it, and Eric says that it was a WCW director that used the design studios at Disney to create that logo.
yeah. But supposedly he says it was like a third party. So I'm wondering if he's considering Disney Studios to be a third party, right? Like,
I mean, they would have. I guess they would have been a third party to TNT at the time, right, or to Turner at the
yeah,
time. They were just using their space, right? It's interesting.
yeah. So, um, yeah, yeah. It's gonna be awesome. I think. I just to have a book like dedicate them.
Yeah.
Um, and he says he talks to Eric too. I believe he said. And Eric told him he would never find the person that made it. So, um, yeah.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah. So,
Very interesting. Yeah, that'll be fun to read.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I technically this is the first ever NWO book, right? Because everything was the death of WCW, WCW Nitro. Like, there's never been a dedicated NWO book.
I don't think so. Yeah.
And he
Yeah.
said the other headline he gave, he actually talked to a presidential candidate that said that was telling him how like the NWO was taking over everything, like just changing everything. A presidential candidate. Yeah.
It's, it's interesting.
Yeah. So, uh,
I mean, in some of these documentaries, I mean, there's been a million
yeah,
documentaries about
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah,
In
yeah.
some of these documentaries, that has been like a common theme of talking about how like the NWO and DX like completely changed everything. You know.
Yeah, right? Like that was yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, yeah, looking forward to that. That was the last thing I had, but yeah, anything else, Dan, that you might have?
I think that's it. I think that's it.
All right. Well, that's season 2, episode 3. Um, Botch Wrestling Podcast. Like, comment, subscribe. We're gonna try and be back every week like we were before, unless things pick up, and then you would see posting on Instagram. If we're gonna be out a week or two or whatnot. But tonight's Thursday night. When depending on when you're listening, it's probably Friday. I'll have this up over the weekend so you guys can go through everything on our YouTube channel, which is at Botch Wrestling Pod. Um, yeah, subscribe, help us out, pass on the good word. Botch will be appreciated. Until then, adios, guys. Same time next week. See ya.